We are living in the absolute golden age of romantic analytics. If you look at the recent survey of 5,000 daters, it reads less like a collection of love stories and more like a survival manual for a very specific, very emotionally exhausting wilderness. We have categorized every conceivable human behavior into red flags, green flags, beige flags, and absolute deal breakers. We have weaponized therapy speak to the point where going on a casual coffee date feels like conducting a hostile corporate audit. Yet, despite being armed to the teeth with all this empirical data about what not to do, we are all somehow still stepping on the exact same landmines.
It really is the ultimate paradox of modern love. We have outsourced our intuition to checklists, believing that if we can just gather enough data, we can somehow outsmart human nature. But the profound irony of surveying 5,000 people about their dating regrets is that the data reveals a fundamental flaw in our programming. We think we are rational actors in the dating market, carefully weighing green flags like emotional availability and financial stability. But in reality, when confronted with a walking, talking red flag wrapped in a leather jacket or a charming smile, our rational brain completely short-circuits. We treat red flags less like warning signs and more like a challenge. It makes you wonder if we are actually looking for peace, or if we are just addicted to the familiar flavor of disaster.
That is exactly it. It is the gamification of romance. When I look at what these thousands of daters wish they knew sooner, the recurring theme isn't a lack of information. Nobody is saying, "I had no idea that him disappearing for 3 days was a bad sign." They knew. The tragedy is the arrogance. It is the deeply held, almost delusional belief that we are the exception to the rule. We look at a glaring deal breaker, like chronic inconsistency, and we tell ourselves, well, they are just misunderstood, and my love will be the magical solvent that fixes their childhood trauma. It is romantic venture capitalism. We are investing in terrible startups hoping for a unicorn.
Romantic venture capitalism is the perfect way to phrase it. And just like in venture capitalism, the failure rate is catastrophic. What people wish they knew sooner is that a red flag is not a cry for help, and a relationship is not a rehabilitation center. But let us look at the psychology behind why we ignore the green flags. A green flag, someone who texts back promptly, communicates openly, and offers stability, is objectively what we all claim to want. Yet, when people actually encounter this, they often describe the experience as boring, or say there is no spark. We have collectively confused the cortisol spike of anxiety with the dopamine rush of chemistry. If your nervous system isn't in a state of sheer panic, you assume you aren't in love.
Which brings us to the most enduring, agonizing cliché of all time. The idea that nice guys finish last. If everyone is out here complaining about toxic partners and writing dissertations on red flags, why is the market value of a genuinely nice person seemingly so low? And why do so many women, despite having a PhD in red flag identification, keep bypassing the safe harbor to sail straight back into the hurricane?
To answer that, we have to aggressively deconstruct what we actually mean by nice. There is a massive difference between a genuinely good person and someone suffering from nice guy syndrome. The tragic flaw of the stereotypical nice guy is that his niceness is often a covert contract. It is highly transactional. The underlying logic is, I have deposited 3 units of listening to your problems and 2 units of buying you dinner. Therefore, you owe me romance and affection. When that transaction is denied, the niceness evaporates instantly, revealing a deep well of entitlement. True kindness is a baseline of human decency, not a currency you use to purchase intimacy.
Oh, the vending machine theory of romance. You put the nice coins in, you expect the relationship to fall out the bottom, and when it gets stuck, you shake the machine. It is completely transparent, and honestly, It is a massive red flag dressed up as a green one. But let us play devil's advocate for a moment. What about the truly good guys? The ones who aren't operating on a covert contract, who are just inherently kind, stable, and supportive. Why do they still get left on red while the chaotic, emotionally unavailable guy gets a 5-paragraph text at 2 in the morning?
Because predictability is the enemy of passion, at least in the early stages of human attraction. We are biological creatures, wired to respond to intermittent reinforcement. It is the exact same psychological mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. If you put a coin in a slot machine and win every single time, you will eventually get bored and walk away. But if you win just often enough to keep hope alive, but lose enough to keep you desperate, you will sit at that machine until you are bankrupt. The emotionally unavailable partner is a human slot machine. They give you just enough breadcrumbs of affection to keep you hooked, followed by days of silence. The nice guy, the genuinely stable one, gives you a reliable paycheck. And frankly, a reliable paycheck simply does not provide the same intoxicating, heart-pounding thrill as hitting the jackpot.
So we are essentially dealing with a population of romance junkies, mistaking emotional starvation for a healthy appetite. It is a terrifying thought, and it perfectly explains the Bob the Builder complex so many people have. There is this intoxicating ego trip in choosing someone who is objectively a disaster. The subconscious thought process is, if he is terrible to everyone else, but he changes for me, then I must be incredibly special. It is not even about him anymore. It is about validating her own worth by taming the beast.
Precisely. It is an ego trip disguised as profound empathy. And this is the ultimate deal breaker that all those 5,000 surveyed daters eventually slammed into. You cannot love someone into their potential. You can only date the reality of who they are today, not the blueprint of who they could be in 5 years, with intense therapy. The brutal truth about why people keep choosing the wrong partners is that the wrong partner perfectly mirrors their own unresolved internal conflicts. If you don't believe you deserve peace, a healthy, peaceful relationship will feel completely suffocating to you. You will self-sabotage it just to return to the familiar chaos you know how to navigate.
That is a heavy realization. We spend so much time analyzing the other person, scrutinizing their texts, auditing their past relationships, looking for the microscopic red flags that we completely forget to audit ourselves. We treat dating like we are the casting director of our own movie, complaining about the terrible actors showing up to the audition without ever questioning the script we wrote. If you keep casting the same villain in different outfits, at some point, you have to admit you are the one writing a tragedy.
And that is the most deeply uncomfortable truth of all. The ultimate green flag isn't something you find in another person. It is a state of self-awareness you cultivate within yourself. It is the ability to look at a chaotic, thrilling, utterly destructive dynamic and say, this is exciting, but I choose peace. Until we reach that point, all the data in the world, all the surveys, and all the color-coded flags are entirely useless. We will just keep using the data to elegantly describe the exact shape of the hole we are digging for ourselves.
So, after analyzing the regrets of thousands of people, maybe the real takeaway isn't about learning to spot the danger faster. Maybe it is about asking ourselves why we are so magnetically drawn to the fire in the first place. Are we actually looking for a life partner, or are we just looking for a distraction from ourselves? It is a question that requires a lot more courage to answer than simply swiping left.
It is the only question that matters, because at the end of the day, the most dangerous deal breaker isn't the flaws of the person sitting across from you at dinner. It is your own willingness to betray your boundaries just to avoid sitting alone. And until we can sit comfortably in the silence of our own company, we will keep inviting the noise back in.